5 years ago, I suddenly discovered a lump in the side of my throat. I thought, no, that don't look good. And it wasn't, of course, but it took several months to figure it all out. The doctors want to try every other thing. And I said to the doctor, and I said, you know something, you need to go for the worst case scenario first. And not the, oh, maybe it's an infection or maybe it's something else. And you got to get that biopsy right away. Well, they didn't, and so I was a little later than I should have been. By the time I got the radiation treatment and chemo and everything to kill the thing, it had crushed a nerve, which goes to my vocal cord and the side of my throat to swallow with. I'm living with it because I like being alive, and I really love this beautiful planet that I was fortunate enough to be born into. And you know, I like talking to people about stuff. I've lived for a long time. I'll be 75 next January. Hard to believe, but I am. And I have an odd diet. I don't eat vegetables or carbohydrates, haven't for 51 years, which I think has helped my body survive in pretty good nick. But of course, I didn't see this sledgehammer coming. But even then, I'm going past that. I'm going to get past that. And I've gotten past a lot of it. I'm much better now than I was a few years ago. On the other hand, you know, all these different funny things that have happened around me and in my life are kind of interesting. I don't remember all of it. In fact, I don't remember most of it. But some of the stuff I do remember. I look at that and I think, I'm not sure I did that, but I think I did. And I had a lot of little insights, right? One of the insights was that when I first started smoking pot, now this is 1963, I guess. Well, in those days, you could buy a lid was what they called it. It was supposed to be an ounce, but trust me, it was never an ounce. And then I said, what's a lid? He says, oh, that's the amount of marijuana you can stuff into a Prince Albert tobacco can. Well, you had to go to an antique store to see one of those things, even then. And I thought, volume, okay. So then someone came along with some speed and some coke and some other stuff, and you bought a spoon. I said, what's a spoon? Well, that's the amount that fits in a spoon. Yep, yeah, but what does it weigh? Oh, I don't know, that's the way it's done. I said, that's not right. So the spoon was supposed to be an ounce, turned out to be 15 to 20 grams. Same thing with a lid of weed, supposed to be an ounce, it turned out to be anything. And so I thought, no, that's not, let's switch this to metric, call it grams. Within 6 months, those things were sold by the gram, by the weight, not by the volume, and not by the weird bag or lid, spoon, etc. And perhaps that was useful, so I thought, well, at least I made a little impression. It might be the only thing I ever do is make an impression. Turned out it wasn't quite right, but it still doesn't seem like most of the stuff I've done was particularly unique. It was just something I thought had to be done at the time. Most of it was, some of it was dangerous, some of it was fun, some of it was interesting. A lot of it was very hard. A friend of mine gave me a sugar cube with a spot on it. He said, this is acid, this is LSD, they call it acid. I said, oh yeah? What's that? He said, well, it's sort of like morning glory seeds, only better. And I knew about morning glory seeds. As soon as I found out that people would buy morning glory seeds, I went and bought a pound of them from a garden supply and started putting them in little baggies. And it paid for lunch, I'll tell you. And then somebody said, well, you give me 3 bags of morning glory seeds, I'll only give you a spoon of speed. And it turned out that was it. And I looked at that and I thought, So then I looked that up, then I looked up how you did it. That's not too complicated. Believe me, today they figured out ways I didn't even think were possible to do that. But one thing led to another. But I had this little spoon and I thought, this little baggie of speed, and I thought, I better go find out how to weigh it and figure out what it is. So I went looking around in the university, and I wandered into a laboratory, and there was this nice lady, and I said, could I use the scale here? She said, sure. And it turned out to be Melissa, who was one of the people who eventually became a partner of mine and helped me with all of the acids and stuff that we cooked up in those days. Now, speed was illegal. It was illegal because you're supposed to have a script. Acid was not illegal because it wasn't used for anything. Therefore, there was no script you could get. It just simply wasn't defined as a drug or anything. Of course, that didn't last very long, did it? But one of the things I noticed was when I got my first acid my first pot was full of seeds, full of stems, full of leaves. They said something about buds. I didn't see a flower in the bloody thing. It looked like someone had squenched up a bunch of seeds, stems, and leaves. But you crushed it up and got out the stems and got out the seeds, and you could get high on it, sort of. But you drop one of those seeds on the ground, and the next day, or a few days later, you see a plant coming up. And I said, boy, that stuff's fecund. It's really fertile. And I thought, well, if it's that easy to grow, and it turns out it's growing along the highways in Virginia and places like that, nobody paid attention to it. When I went to high school, I never heard of it. That was back in the 40s, and nobody ever heard of it. And in fact, I actually read One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and didn't notice the marijuana references. I taught myself to read when I was a couple of years old, and my habit was to read the words I knew and skip the ones that didn't. As I went back and reread that novel, and holy cow, it was a totally different book. I learned a lot, but I must have missed a lot too. I'd say probably half the stuff I thought I knew, I really didn't. But you can't only build a vocabulary just so quickly. And you can't expect a 2-year-old to know much about the words. So, I'd probably read an article. If I wasn't reading a comic book, which is probably where I learned to read anyway, most of it. But when I see a word I knew, I said, yeah. So it kept me going. It was something to do. So eventually I was very comfortable with reading, and I read a lot. And there was no TV until I was 13. So when it comes along to these things that I thought needed to be done, like the speed and the acid and whatnot, I had no trouble going into a library and starting to browse around through the literature, and then looked at things that compared this synthesis with that synthesis. And even though I wasn't skilled in chemistry, it wasn't a subject I had much knowledge in, I knew something about it. I knew how to make rockets out of zinc and sulfur that would go like crazy, and cherry bombs and things, and nitroglycerin. I knew how to make that. Just destructive little bugger I was. But I had no idea how to, make drugs or anything, or any kind of organic stuff. So I spent some time reading organic manuals and, handbooks and looking up stuff in the journals and things. And pretty soon I figured, oh, that's not so bad. And I understood the apparatus and whatnot. And then I had met this girl in the laboratory, and we could go look at it. And I said, so I got all the stuff together that it said to make the speed. I said, let's try this, see how it works. And pretty soon we had the stuff spread out on the counters, and one of the teaching assistants, right, comes in there and says, oh, aliphatic amine. And she said, yeah, we're trying to work out this synthesis. Oh, okay. But it turned out that the gear that you needed to work with acid was not cheap. In fact, a little glass bottle about that big is like $500 or $600. And I thought, holy cow. So I had to do something. The speed was easy, and I didn't know anything about it. Nobody did. Nobody considered it particularly bad. There was this little scene that used it. And I learned pretty quickly that stuff made you crazy as a June bug very fast. And maybe it wasn't such a good thing to do. So as soon as I could get this gear and the materials and figure out how to buy and all that and how to do it and build a little thing. And once I got into the acid thing, I let that behind. But I'm not denying I did it, because that was my bootstrap. And sometimes you have to do things to facilitate others. So long as you do something like that, if you do it with integrity and with honor, and you can learn from it. So if you see this is not so good, maybe then you stop doing it, which I did, So then I made this acid, and there's no such thing as a little bit of acid. You make the smallest batch that they publish, and it's like 15 grams. If you do it right, you get 15 grams out. Well, 15 times 3,600 makes 300 microgram tablets, which are like 4 times the dose you could buy today if you could find someone to sell it to you. And we thought that was right because, after all, Albert Hoffman had taken 250, and we figured, boy, light destroys this, everything destroys. So we better put a little extra, like 10%. Well, that's 25. And then you put a little extra in there to make your variations, and so you wind up with, instead of 2,500, 250 microgram doses, you wind up with 3,600 that are supposedly 275, but are probably 300, some maybe more. And that's what you call it. But you call it a gram. It's 3,600 instead of 4,000. And you run with it. So, well, it turned out that as Hoffman later said, oh, that's a significant overdose. And I said, yeah, tell me about it. A little late, aren't you? We soon discovered that this was definitely a fly-to-the-moon mixture. And the poor people who didn't think they were high and took the second dose within 45 minutes, it's like a 2-stage rocket, and it's like taking 4 tablets at once. And these people are usually gone for about 3 days, or maybe 4, and do all kinds of things. It's really hard to get them to keep their clothes on. I was one of them. I also learned you don't mix acid and mescaline and DMT and psilocybin and all those. When I was having today, takes a little, smokes a pot. Oh boy. That took 4 days. And I don't even remember what happened, but I think I was at my son Starfinder's mother's house for a while, standing in one place for a long time. Later on I thought, well, I don't think you should mix these things together. Bad idea. So I've been in all these different places you could go, and I've taken too much, I've taken too little. I've had accidents in the lab that splashed 2,000 micrograms into my mouth. Enough time to walk over to the couch and sit down. I think that this stuff that I did in the 60s was just what I did in the 60s. I did it because I had to. I didn't want to be an acid maker. I'm an artist. I wanted to be an artist, but an artist, I needed a tool, like a painter needs a paintbrush. People like Michelangelo, and Benvenuto Cellini, who was one of my childhood heroes. He lived the life. I thought, now that's the life. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm making sculpture out of gold and things. And I'm doing it wildly and freely. And he was doing that. He started writing when he was in his 50s. And of course, you can probably remember it. Plus, he didn't take the things that I took either. But it's like writing something about Cellini or Michelangelo and focusing on the fact that they made paints. Michelangelo was a great paint maker. Give me a fucking break. They talk about me. Oh, he's a great acid maker. You're kidding. The acid's just a tool. It's like a screwdriver. It's a screwdriver for the brain, for the consciousness. It lets you get in there and find that volume knob, tweak it. Get rid of the filters for a while. Open things up. Move to the next level of mind work. You can do things like controlling amplifiers with your head on DMT. Then nobody knows about that. You can do things like hook it up with a whole sea of people, like at Woodstock, or Watkins Glen, or the acid test. Become like one mind, where you feel like a patchwork quilt. You feel sensations from a lot of the people around you. You can see things, hear things, think things that they're thinking. And all that kind of strange stuff. That's all another level of consciousness, but it must be something that's built in. It's something that's natural to us. We can't reach it without a little help. And that help occurs not in our bodies. That help occurs around us in the plant world, mostly. I think there probably are some animals like, I've never taken, what is it called, fugu, which is a toxic liver of a certain fish, that's a deadly poisonous fish. And you take exactly the right amount, and you're cool. You take a little bit too much, and you're dead. And you take a little less, and nothing happens. Now, that's a little too twitchy for me, I'm afraid. So I'll never learn. But it sounds like what they describe, that it's very psychedelic. And, of course, crazy people, that's why they used to call them psychotomimetics. Well, psychedelics aren't psychotomimetics any more than they're entheogens. I don't think they create gods within. I don't think they duplicate schizophrenia, or they like to call that bipolar these days. Schizophrenia is no longer PC. And I think what they actually do is they let go of the filters and they turn a gain. And if you're a good guy, you become a really good guy. And if you're someone like Charles Manson, you better watch out, you know. I used to know a Hell's Angel, and he used to say to me, "Oh, I just love to get in a fight when I'm on acid." I said, "Yeah?" Because I'm thinking, the last thing I want to do is get in a fight when I'm on acid. And everybody I knew felt the same way. Oh, he said, "Yeah, the other guy, he's moving in slow motion. It's easy." And I thought, yeah, that's his nature. He loves to fight. I mean, the Hell's Angels, they get in a fight with each other all the time just because they love to fight. I'm not trying to kill the other guy. They're get in a fight, right? Couldn't break themselves up, blow out their teeth, crack their nose. I don't matter. They never wash their blue jeans. What do you expect? Come on. But some of those guys were some of the most psychedelic people I ever met. I met them at Kesey's. Boy, once they discovered Kesey and the acid, these killer speed freak drunkards became, they just opened them up. They were the kind of guys that were right at the edge and fringe of society anyway, so you give this a little boost, they just went somewhere else. And in the end, they wore uniforms, they had rules. They were just like cops, except they were like cops are like dogs, Hell's Angels were like wolves. The cops are the same kind, but you're much more likely to be killed by an angel than a cop, unless you live in this state, which apparently the cops like to kill people better than they like to have lunch. So I don't know. Well, that's what I've heard anyway. I don't think any other state in Australia, they shoot as many people as they do here. I see it in the news all the time. Why are people always saying, "What kind of spiritual advancement did you get from taking acid?" I said, "Spiritual advancement? I don't think we took acid for that reason. We took it because, woo, that's why we took it. Yeah, come out of it and say, too bad I can't take it for another week. Or, wow, I wonder if the music will be that good next week, or whatever. You didn't come out of it and say, oh, I got a direct into God. And I saw him in his face. Well, when you take the too much in God for 3 days, you might see all kinds of stuff. In fact, if you smoke DMT, you may see all kinds of strange creatures. We used to call them the Tinker Toy Men. Or you might see something else. Who knows? Actually, I think that people think acid, that's the top, right, basically. I think the most outrageous and amazing of all of those psychedelics is DMT. Somewhere along the line, we discovered that if you took equal parts of DMT and DET, diethyltryptamine, and mixed them together, instead of lasting 10 minutes, it lasted for 2 hours. But it was a DMT high. And 2 hours might be 2 hours, it might be an hour and 50 minutes longer than you really want that particular high to last. You don't know when you take it. Some of them are great, you wish they'd last, and some of them say, well, it can't last that long, I'll be glad when it's over, because you get some really scary stuff. But it's amazing stuff. And then, of course, if you don't have something like acid in your system to repair your nervous system, then for days you think you're restricted to monosyllabic words and things. You think, wow, you smoke toothbrushes, you're bound to get problems. And it's kind of like that. I don't really know. It's like, how far can you explore those things? And if you're really living your life and trying to earn a living and all that, it's hard to take any psychedelics because it's hard to get away from the period of time that you need to recover. So I don't know how well it fits. We were free and easy and living a loose life and doing things that didn't require us to clock in and clock out and all. You can't really extend that to the general population. Somebody says, let's turn on the world. I don't care about that. I care about what I take. I made the acid for me. I didn't make it for everybody. But you can't make just a little bit. That little 15 grams turns into 3,600 doses per gram. What are you going to do with it? Well, it goes bad if you leave it later. I've got to give it away. Or you can sell something to get the money back to buy some more apparatus and stuff. And to put in a little money aside because you're probably going to get into trouble and you have to pay the lawyers. But I said we gave half of it away, and I did that for a reason because you sell it for I think it was, in those days it was something like $2,500 for 3,600 doses, about 80, 90 cents. And it would have gone to $10 a dose on the street, except that somebody might give you a free one tomorrow or later on the day. So it never went above $2 or $2.50, which is still a markup of 3 or 4 to 1, but that seemed about equal with general commerce. So it was a way of sabotaging the black market, which I hated from the minute I turned on to anything. Black market, you got to kill it. You kill a black market by making it non-profitable for people to jack prices up like that and control the source. And I still think that, and I thought to myself, you can't have this kind of money outside the economy. It's going to cause a problem. But that really wasn't a problem until the prices started to go through the roof, which they are now. Then I thought, I wonder how long it'll take. It took a lot longer than I thought. But now that it's happened, I see them doing all this stuff, and they'll say, oh, they give out a stimulus package, give people money. Oh, we must get a recovery. Retail sales are up. Well, you got a pocket full of money. Sure, you could go to the store and buy something you wanted but didn't have the money for. But then on 2 pages later, they say, well, the United States unemployment is still rising. Well, guess what? Recessions, depressions are not governed by how much money people are spending in Woolworths and Myers. It's governed by who has a job and who doesn't. Soup lines, people out of work, people losing their houses, people sleeping on the streets. Crime goes up. Drug use goes up. And the more you try to control it, the worse it gets. It's like trying to carry money, water in a bucket with holes in it. You pour the stimulus in, it runs out back into the black market again. And what does the mafia do with trillions of dollars a year? You gotta buy something. You can't keep money, not that much of it. It's like air, like water. You drink, you gotta pee. You can't keep it. So money, you get money, you gotta buy something with it. Well, trillions of dollars. You're not buying used cars and yachts, are you? You might be buying Halliburton, Bear Stearns, Bank of America. You might be buying every foreign exchange firm you can find. Because, boy, the best way to launder illegal money is to swap it between currencies, because the guy that swaps it gets a fee. The money has no name. It's just going and coming. It's just like a river going by, but that guy keeps dipping. And if you say you got 5%, that's high. You wouldn't get that much. You pass the same amount of money by about 20 times, and the money's gone. But the money's now legal. And so if you own that firm, that's your money. Your money now is not made by selling drugs or anything. It's made because you're a currency trader.
From your point of view, what do you think the biggest mark you've left on the world is?
I don't know. I hope to do something significant soon. So asked me, have you write a book? I said, well, when I do something worthy, I will. I've just had a lot of fun. I don't think I've done much of anything. Yeah, it was a pretty good time. I got caught out a few times. I got punished inappropriately. They sent me to prison for making acid, which was a community service. I I thought, but I did it anyway because that was part of what I took on when I started making. I thought, well, shit could happen. So when they said I just had the wrong lawyers, I might have escaped that too. You know, that happens. Lawyers and doctors, you got to be careful. Really. So I don't really know. I think that people have. See, you guys, you all belong to a special scene, which has idolized things like acid and making it and all that. I don't. I'm an artist. That was just a tool. It's like paintbrush. And I don't think that much of it. I think, well, I did that, but, you know, that wasn't what I wanted to do. And actually, that took a lot of time, and it cost me 2 years in jail, which wasn't fun. And 2 years in jail cost me a relationship with the Grateful Dead, and that wasn't fun. And in the end, when I came out, I had learned I could make art with my hands when I was in prison, and that probably paid for the whole trip. So I would say discovering that I have a natural talent to produce art out of nothing with my hands, without any training, it probably is the best thing that's happened to me, but whether that's an accomplishment or whether other people would say, oh, that's good art, or whether, oh, that's clever, or maybe it's just high-level craft, I don't know. And then the music thing, I discovered the way the human ear processes sound and matched the PA systems into that. And nobody else seems to be interested in. But it says I can't train anybody in it. When I'm gone, it's gone. But, so I don't know if that's an accomplishment. I really can't tell you. I can only tell you at the end, when you look back and you got it. What I wanted to do was to actually make a positive contribution to human society that would make life better or easier or more worth. That might improve government, improve taxation, reduce, you know, crime and violence by eliminating inappropriate laws, and influence human behavior in a way that would be a worthy thing to do. What I've done, to date, I do not believe is worthy of anything like that. And it's like a cult thing. Well, I'm not interested in cults. I'm not interested in celebrity. I won't sign an autograph. Somebody wants my signature, they buy a piece of my art, it's signed. Because I don't want that.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We're going to have to leave it there. That was fantastic.
Hey.